Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and I'm asking a very simple question in this video. What is wrong with Bethesda? So let me elaborate. Maybe we can come up with an answer to my question over the course of this video, or down in the comments. Speaking of which, please do let me know your thoughts and opinions on this matter, whether you agree or disagree, and why. So what do I mean by what is wrong with Bethesda? In case you don't know, Bethesda Softworks publish video games. Bethesda Game Studios are their modern development branch that make games you probably know of or have played, the Elderscrolls and the modern Fallout series. Specifically here I am talking about Bethesda Game Studios and their development of Elderscrolls and Fallout. Now don't get me wrong, I don't think these games are awful or garbage or anything like that. I've played and enjoyed pretty much every game they've released, and sure, there is some merit to them, but I want to understand why their games are so low quality, objectively speaking. So what triggered this? Well, I've been saying this since like 2009 on my blog, which no one should read, and no one has read, I hope. But then, back when I started my channel in 2013, I would jokingly compare negatively Dark Souls and Skyrim, and it's been something I've brought up from time to time as an example of a big studio that just kinda suck, considering how much money they should have. But Fallout 76 is what pushed me into making this video because just wow, it's unbelievable to me. Considering the amount of money that Bethesda make, why do their games still feel like rushed, low quality, or just indie projects put together by a team of 5 students in their spare time? Now here's a few stats for the sake of comparison. Grand Theft Auto 5 by Rockstar came out in 2013 and it sold roughly 95 million copies, which is, I think, the best-selling game in the universe. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim came out in 2011 and has sold roughly 30 million copies. That's nothing compared to GTA 5, I know, but that's still one of the best-selling games in history. Fallout 3 had an estimated 12 million sales as of 2015. Fallout 4 was described by Bethesda as their most successful launch ever and shipped 12 million copies on launch day, apparently. The point of all these stats is to drive home the fact that Bethesda Game Studios are one of the most successful game development studios in the world. Comparing them with Rockstar is fair, in my opinion. Both studios put out games at a very slow and methodical pace. We don't get new Elder Scrolls every year like we do Assassin's Creed. We get Elder Scrolls and GTA like 5 years apart, roughly speaking. So why is there such a disparity between the quality of these studios when it comes to the quality of the product they are putting out? Is it just the number of staff? We know that Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, has an absolutely enormous, insane number of people working on it. So is that it? Is it because Bethesda Game Studios has 2 people instead of 1,000? Is that why their games are just so low quality? See, that's what I'm asking here. I'm not saying Elder Scrolls sucks, Fallout sucks, if you like them you suck. I'm saying when you take events into consideration, why are they so comparatively bad? If an indie studio puts out their RPG game on Steam that was made by a team of 20 people on a budget of sandwiches, I'm not going to expect that to compare with Red Dead Redemption 2 in terms of scope, scale, and quality. If Fallout 4 had been made by some middling tier developer or publisher, I wouldn't complain about it. If Fallout 76 was an early access game put out on Steam by some studio you've never heard of, I wouldn't complain, because you would expect bugs and, low quality. But if the game itself is fun, you forget about that sort of stuff. But if Rockstar released Fallout 76, I would ask what the hell is going on. The industry and consumers should be holding Bethesda to higher standards than they have been. Why have game journalists in particular given them a free pass until now? Fallout 76 seems to finally be the moment places like IGN, GameSpot, and so forth are going, you know what, this kinda sucks. Like, the level of quality here is not acceptable from a publisher of this scale. Why is it taking them so long? I'm sure you remember comments like, well, there's a few bugs, that's to be expected, especially from a Bethesda game. Why is it to be expected from a company that could spend more on quality assurance than most developers could spend on their entire development cycle and still turn a profit? What is wrong with Bethesda? Where is the money going? Are they just going like, oh, we know our games are going to make an insane amount of money, even if we don't spend money on them? Is that what's happening? Now here's something from 2012 that I still have saved because it is still amazing to me. IGN ratings for the Elderscrolls 5 Skyrim, 9.5 out of 10. Presentation, 9 out of 10. Where they say, bugs and stability issues do exist, however. Graphics, 9.5 out of 10. And then they say, some character models and animations look unnatural. What? Okay, sound being 10, sure, I'm not gonna argue that at all. I wouldn't give Skyrim a 10 out of 10 personally, especially because the PC version is still bugged and has been bugged forever, where the volume is set to like 10% and you need to crank it up insanely high just so you can hear anything. Gameplay, 9.5. Though the up-close weapon combat is awkward, customizing your character blah 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 is satisfying. So all of these things are like, they have caveats. They're saying, oh yeah, it's like 9 or 9.5 out of 10, which is an insanely high score, but then they have to mention something like, yeah, there's bugs, or yeah, the combat actually is garbage, but we're giving it 9.5 out of 10. What? Now, that by itself, taken in an isolated bubble, if you will, is one thing. But then we have their ratings for Dragon's Dogma, which is 7.5 out of 10. They gave it a 7 for presentation, 6 for graphics, even though the animations in Dragon's Dogma blow Skyrim completely away, and even if you look at it on a completely objective sense, you would have to be clinically damaged in the brain to give Skyrim 9.5, Dragon's Dogma a 6. Like, how are you dividing that? Animation, performance, visual style, and aesthetic? Like, even if you say, yes, I love Skyrim's art style, you have to knock points away for the terrible animations and stuff, so it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Then here's the best part. Remember how Skyrim had 9.5 out of 10? It was like 0.5 away from being perfect gameplay in IGN's insane little world. Dragon's Dogma, they give an 8. Like, why? Are the like kinda clunky and stupid menus in Dragon's Dogma enough to knock 2 points away? Whereas in Skyrim, the completely awful combat, which I would argue is a lot more important than bad menus, that's only 0.5? What's going on here? And they say for Dragon's Dogma gameplay, the excellent combat and character progression carry the entire experience and make you want to persist. They don't actually list anything negative about the gameplay, so they're not being logically consistent in any way, shape or form. And this is the sort of nonsense that game journalists, as they call themselves, laughingly, have been pushing for years, and now that people seem to be kind of wising up, because, you know, people are playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and whether you like that game or not is, you know, that's up to you, but you cannot look at it and deny the quality of it. It is an extremely high quality and polished product. People buy that, they finish it, and then they go and play Fallout 76, and they're like, huh, that's weird. It's almost like this game costs $5 to make. And somehow, at last, people are wising up to that at IGN, who probably only gave it a 9.1 out of 10. Maybe they gave it a 7.6 out of 10. I don't know. So people have tolerated it for far too long when they shouldn't. Why would you tolerate garbage? If you go to McDonald's, you know, you get a McDonald's and you know what you're getting there. You wouldn't go to McDonald's, and if they just threw your chicken McNuggets on the floor, you wouldn't pick it up and go, eh. But at the same time, if you went to like some Michelin star restaurant, you wouldn't expect to get McDonald's level of food, right? That's kind of what I'm saying here. Bethesda are trying to present themselves as AAA, the best of the best, and yet they're not. They'd be lucky if they're a D. These are developers who have used the same game engine for a decade, and now, before you go, uh-oh, he's gonna start spouting misinformation about the engine. No, I'm not a game designer or developer, I don't code engines, and I'm not just going to magically blame the engine for everything. But hear me out. Gamebryo is what they used to call it. With Skyrim, they said, no, now we're using the creation engine. But that was just Gamebryo with a different title. These are developers who can't figure out how to code ladders into their game. Something that have been in games since games existed, I'm pretty sure. These are developers who designed a vehicle that was just a hat worn by an NPC who was underground. So basically, imagine an NPC whose head was a car, then his body was underground, and the car was at ground level. Some might say the fact that this NPC is running very quickly, that's ingenious. I say it's stupid and either a limitation of the developers or the engine. If it's a limitation of the engine, why don't you have a new engine? If it's a limitation of the developers, why don't you hire some new developers? It's not like you're lacking for money. But if that was an isolated situation, you could brush it off. But it's an example of the sort of unacceptable displays put on by this development studio. All you need to do is compare Fallout 4 or Fallout 76 or Skyrim with games like The Witcher 3, Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption, and so forth. You can compare them with Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, two games that came out a year apart, and yeah, it kind of looks like Odyssey is just kind of a reskin of Origins, and yet, irrespective of your personal enjoyment of these games, how much you enjoy their narrative or gameplay or world, it's plain to see the disparity in quality amongst them. We should expect more, we should demand more from one of the world's biggest and most successful developers. I suppose we're lucky in this situation that game journalists haven't all been doing a weird unified push saying gamers are so entitled. Why do they seem to think that saying gamers are entitled is a bad thing? What? It's not a bad thing. We are entitled. We're entitled to a product that is worth the money we are spending on it, you know? It's, again, to go back to McDonald's, and I'm pretty hungry, which is probably why I keep bringing up McDonald's. If you go to McDonald's and, you know, you order a Big Mac and they hand you a bag of shit instead, and then you go, this isn't what I paid for, would they start like blogging about it going, geez, they're so entitled, they want what they paid for, they want quality product that is of the quality they would expect at this level of price range? So yes, we should expect and demand more from one of the world's biggest and most successful developers. When Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, you'd have to be ignorant to not recognise the game's feats, if purely on a technical level. With Fallout 76, you'd have to be ignorant to ignore the shocking flaws. Now, all of this might sound like a personal attack on Bethesda, which I'm not intending it to be. I enjoy Fallout, I enjoy Elderscrolls, I want to see these games realise their full potential. Stop using Gamebryo. If Gamebryo isn't the problem, well, maybe you need to hire some new talent. And I'm sure there is no shortage of talented people out there who would love to work on Elder Scrolls or Fallout. I mean, just look at the modding community for these games. People are still making amazing mods for them all these years later. So these people must be talented, why don't you hire them? Every other game studio in the world hires people when they need something done. But Bethesda? Is that the problem? Are you not hiring the right people? Or is it the engine? It's one of the two, maybe it's a combination of the both. I don't know. If you can't make your own game engine that isn't complete garbage, why don't you use Unreal or Unity? Is it because you don't want to pay a license fee? You'd rather just stick with Gamebryo, which is working so well for you? Okay, well in that case, develop an in-house engine like MT Framework or the Rage engine or Crystal Studios or whatever it's called. Bethesda have the resources to do this, but for years they have chosen not to. why. I can only assume because of greed. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you can keep putting out these kind of low quality products and people keep buying them so you get loads of money, why not? I've been having these thoughts for years, but the comparison between 76 and Red Dead 2 is what really drove it home to me. One is technically amazing, almost mind-blowing to consider how they even got it working at all. And the other looks like it was made by 2 students in between classes. Actually, that's insulting to students who make games in their spare time, because at least they would have more genuine passion put into them. Where is that passion from Bethesda? And I see, like, sometimes people ask people from Bethesda on Twitter, they say like, hey, how come this lore inconsistency, blah blah blah, and they either like sarcastically, sardonically, or savagely respond to it by saying like, hey, it's just a video game, why are you expecting lore consistency from a game with zombie demons and bombs? Like, how mentally thick would you have to be to operate under that sort of mindset? See, we're not saying how come there are ghouls in Fallout, it's more like if ghouls have an established background and set of rules, why are you suddenly changing them and not explaining it, and just in general having no regard for your own franchise and then mocking people who bring up these inconsistencies? I just wish I could understand the mindset. They seem to be aggressive towards people they have no cause to be aggressive to. Whenever their own flaws are brought up, they just kind of like go, heh, what you gonna do? And like they joke about it as if it's funny. And yeah, like sometimes the bugs are funny. Like when that giant smacked a horse or whatever in Skyrim and it went into the stratosphere. Sure, bugs can be funny. Low quality isn't very funny though. How can they be okay putting out these mediocre products, treating their franchises in such a lackadaisical manner? That's all I'm saying at the end of the day. When I say the combat and animations are wonky in these games, I'm not saying the next Elderscrolls game needs to play like Devil May Cry and have hard combat, because obviously that isn't the point of the game. But how is there any correlation between good animations and difficulty, for example? It is perfectly reasonable to have good animations and a simple but enjoyable combat system that doesn't look like a demented old man striking the animals in his local park with a petrified aardvark as his weapon of choice. For goodness sake, I don't know if this is in Fallout 76, but I swear even in Fallout 4 they didn't even have like diagonal running animations. You would just sort of awkwardly shuffle along if you tried to move in any direction that wasn't, you know, up, right, left, down. Like you go diagonal and the game just starts freaking out. I really hope Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are being developed on a new engine that is actually new, but they seem to have confirmed that isn't the case. I want them to put some of this money back into their products, because if they put out another buggy amateur mess of a game like 76, they won't be getting a single penny from me. Not when there are developers out there, big and small, who are putting real passion and effort into delivering the sorts of experience everyone deserves. CD Projekt Red are a good example of this. Within the span of a few years, they went from being relative no-names on a global scale to having a huge global audience. Now, why do you think it is that Witcher 1 is mostly an unknown game, Witcher 2 was, you know, a modest success, and Witcher 3 is an insanely popular and beloved game? Why do you think that is? It's not because they put out some low quality garbage, it's because they tried. They spent money to make money, and most importantly, there was passion there. They turned Witcher into one of the most successful game franchises there is in the span like less than 10 years. And that was due to their hard work. Is Witcher 3 my favourite game? No. I have issues with Witcher 3, but I can see the care and attention that went into that game, the sheer amount of work. At the end of the day, I'm saying we should hold people to a level of quality that is in accordance with their station. I don't expect an indie developer of 10 people to put out a product like Red Dead Redemption 2 that was made on a budget of more money than we can comfortably comprehend. And yet, it made more money than we can comprehend either. That's the thing. Likewise, I don't expect a studio of 400 people to put out a product like, I don't know, Fallout 76. How many people did work on 76? Maybe it was made by 76 people. I don't know what the reason is. I wish I knew. I wish I really did. Maybe there are management decisions. Maybe they force the developers to work on the game on a shoestring budget. I don't know. Why is this never being brought up in the industry? Why are people with the power to investigate this not doing it? Why are they fine with it? There's obviously something not right here. It's either ignorance or incompetence, and neither of those are acceptable and are easily remedied. But instead of asking these probing questions, most game journalism outlets would rather just make articles like Top 10 Reasons to be Excited for Fallout 76, or nominating them for Studio of the Year. What? Bethesda? Studio of the Year? Excuse me? Why is that? I don't know. I don't work for Bethesda. I have no insider knowledge. All I know is that from the amount of copies they sell, the amount of money they make, there is no correlation with the level of quality of their products. If my YouTube videos made like $1 million a day or whatever, then I would put some of that money back into increasing the quality of my videos and channels. I could like hire people. I could hire someone to moderate my comments instead of spending like 2 hours a day doing it myself, for starters. For a company that has the time and the resources to compete with the absolute rock stars of the industry, pun very much intended, why are they aiming so low? Now, as I've spent about 30 minutes saying the same thing over and over again, I'll end this video by saying once again, I don't hate Bethesda. I don't hate their games. I'm not a Rockstar fanboy. They just make very good objective comparisons because, you know, they both sell a lot, they both release games infrequently. And there are obviously qualities to the Elderscrolls and Fallout games, because they are fun, and it is fun to play in these worlds that have been created for us. In the same way that Minecraft is like the most #1 popular game in the universe. All I want is for Elder Scrolls 6 to deliver the sort of mind-blowing experience that being one of the world's biggest and most well-funded game developers should allow them to deliver. Or at the very least, maybe I expect a franchise that sells tens of millions of copies to have functioning ladders in.